Hi, Leslie. Stephanie and I are so thrilled to have you on our show today.
Hi.
So, I
Hi.
first came across your work through Jesse Itzler's videos, actually, and he was like raving about your food. And I was really curious who you were. So, I went to your Instagram and I just started kind of stalking you a little bit and was really inspired by everything you're doing and all these plant-based dishes that you're creating and collaborating with Dr. Mindy Pelz. And Stephanie and I really share your passion for healthy, nutritious food. And we are really in awe of the way that you've made this plant-based living so approachable and delicious and fun. And so we're really excited to dive in with you here today.
You're making me blush.
Well, I'm not trying to make you blush, but truly, we're excited. And one thing we really want to ask you before we dive into the conversation is, if you had no constraints today, how would you spend your day?
What a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question. If I had no constraints, how would I spend my day? Well, I live by the water, by the beach, and I'd probably run outside and go grab a paddleboard and get out on the water. And then, I don't know, kind of blow off the rest of the day, maybe go hiking, maybe go to the market, grab some food and wine and make some dinner for some friends and family.
That sounds amazing.
That does sound amazing.
I also just described every weekend of my life and day off. So I
Well,
guess
that's
when you're
awesome.
living the way that you want to live, you're doing it.
That's what we want to hear.
Yes, exactly. And we want, this episode will inspire people to start to take steps to do just that.
Hopefully.
So that they're not like hoping one day to be able to do something, but they're actually doing it on a more regular basis, something that they love and would bring them joy.
Yeah, that really got me about the title of your podcast, The Art of Living Well. I think it's so, it's something that people need to consciously be thinking about probably every single day. And I don't think enough people think about it. And I have had this very wild, creative life that's taken a lot of twists and turns. And it's really about just making decisions every single day and sticking with them and knowing that you can change your life on the drop of a dime to be happier and live well.
Well, what a way to kick off this conversation. So, Leslie, if you could, just set the stage a little bit for a little bit nuggets from your journey, pivotal moments, and how you evolved to becoming a plant-based chef and traveling all over the world. You were just describing before we hit record where you're spending the next few weeks and months and what your year typically looks like. And maybe you could, just share a little bit of insight with our listeners.
I grew up in California, total California beach girl. And I I've let my life lead me in the way that I want to go. I've always asked God, universe, source to illuminate my path and I will follow it if you just show me the way. And I really feel like I've tried to live that way. And so when I was a teenager in my late teens, I fell into doing some modeling jobs. And that kind of led to a few things. It actually took me to Minneapolis quite a few times because I was a model for Veda, which is based there. Oh. And that's why I spent so much time in Minneapolis, which kind of tumbled into an acting career because my modeling agents had a commercial division. I ended up doing a bunch of commercials, ended up auditioning for some TV shows, ended up on a soap opera, decided I hated acting and didn't really want to do it anymore.
But wait a second, you forgot something. Weren't you the lab girl?
Oh, I'm getting to that.
Okay.
So I didn't want to act anymore. And I had a producer friend of mine call me in to interview about a new science show that they were going to do. And I was like, well, I don't know anything about science. They're like, that's okay. And it turned out to be the Bill Nye show. And so I was Leslie the lab girl on that show, which made me fall in love with education. And I loved what he was able to do and create in his community with educating kids on science. And it was actually his idea for me to become a chef and do food education. And so I was like, I think that's a great idea. Okay. And so I dove into the food space. And when I was meeting with networks about doing a science food education show, they were like, you have zero qualifications to do this show. And I was like, well, I wasn't qualified to be a scientist either, but you let me play one of those. But I was like, okay, I got to get serious about this. And so I started traveling. I decided to go to all the countries where I love the cuisine and learn it, because there was no plant-based culinary school when I decided to become a chef. So I went and learned from chefs, from grandmothers, from friends, and just created all of these different ideas by picking up all these techniques from all over the world, all these different ingredients, and just kind of taught myself how to become a chef. And working really hard at that, cooking for anybody that would pay me. And then the Four Seasons came along, and I started working with the Four Seasons, Punta, Mita, Mexico. That is now the most vegan-friendly 5-star resort in the world, which is very exciting.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I've worked with multiple other properties and work with Jesse on all his wild ideas and events. He's a dear friend and he's plant-based, and it's just so fun. Every time he gets a harebrained idea, he goes, Les, I got an idea. And I go, Jess, I'm in. It doesn't matter. Although that is how I signed up to do his cross country on a bike 14-day trip, which I don't regret, but was by far the hardest cooking job I've ever had in my entire life.
Oh, you cooked?
wow.
You cooked for that bike trip?
I cooked for that bike trip.
I didn't know that.
With a tiny little sink and, like portable little stoves and camping equipment. And I cooked for 27 people, 10,000 calories each a day.
Oh, that's a lot of food.
Yeah. And we moved locations every single day. It was absolutely bananas. Some of the towns we went to didn't have grocery stores. They had 99-cent stores. I'm literally walking in and being like, oh my God, what am I going to feed these people? It was wild. Wow. It was so fun. Yeah. You can find highlights of that trip still on my social media.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go check that out. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing the bike trip, like from their perspective, but I didn't pay attention to the food, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, it looked all calm and fun with them on the bikes and this beautiful scenery every single day. And then there was me, this group of people trying to organize everything, and guys, throwing up tents, throwing down tents, repacking them, moving them along. And so there was a lot going on behind the scenes.
Okay, well, maybe you should get involved with 29029.
Funny you say that. I've always wanted to do a 29029, but I also would love to do the food for them because it's such
they need it.
We did it this year for the first time.
We did one this year.
Oh,
and we met Jesse.
Which one did you do?
Mount Tremblant.
Whoa.
In
that's
Canada.
A hard one too. Not that any of them
they're
are
all
easy.
hard. They're all hard in different ways.
Yes, for sure. I just remember, I think it was the one in Utah where we saw Kevin the cop was literally on all
running.
Fours,
that was insane.
Up this hill, and I was like, that's not the one for me.
Yeah. No.
That's not normal either. Yeah. Like that's very not normal what he was doing.
No.
Yeah. Well, nothing is normal about Kevin, and that's why we love him.
Yeah.
So we met him, right, Stephanie?
Yeah, we did at the sauna camp.
Just randomly, we met him at that ice camp.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Kevin in a sauna and an ice camp. Yes.
Yep. He was with Jesse and some others that I'm sure you know. So this is funny.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've had an amazing journey.
It's been a wild ride. And it continues to be a wild ride. I'm about to pivot into some more exciting stuff. Still in the food world. But taking
anything you want to share?
Well, I was inspired by working with Dr. Mindy Pelz on Eat Like a Girl. I did the plant-based recipes in it, and I decided it's finally time for me to write my own book.
Yes. I was wondering that, actually.
I'm working on that this year. I'm really excited about it. I've got kind of a fun concept that I hope people will really enjoy, and I hope it resonates with them. And I just can't wait to get it out to the world.
So that's really awesome. Then you may need to come back on when you're promoting your book or your cookbook.
Yes, please.
And Marty and I love cookbooks and love plant-based cookbooks too. So this is right up our alley.
Nice. So, well, have you read Eat Like a Girl yet?
No,
not yet, but that's on my list. Yep.
Okay.
But one question I have for you is, how do you make plant-based cooking accessible to people and exciting? Because I know a lot of meat eaters, especially, hear plant-based and they're like, right?
Yes. I get that a lot. I get a lot of really, But the key is to just open your mind to it, because I stopped eating meat when I was 7 years old in a very big Italian centered, heavy meat focused family. And it's what got me in the kitchen very young as well. I mean, my great grandmother barely spoke English and had me rolling out pasta dough as soon as I could stand. So I had like this great foundation in food. But when I stopped eating meat, I was in the kitchen with my mom making a plant-based version of what she was cooking. And so I would just kind of remove the meat. And then I started really digging. And my mom was actually really supportive, and I owe her so much because she bought me my first cookbooks. She'd take me to the grocery store and say, pick out an interesting vegetable and let's make it. And she let me make all of these wild ideas and these very difficult, like very culinary intense recipes. And she'd be there just trying to figure it out with me. And I love her so much for that. But how to make it exciting and accessible? Well, plant-based food is all around us all the time. There's over 23,000 edible plants. There's only 11 widely sourced animal proteins, which is kind of wild. And so when people say, oh, there's nothing to eat, I'm like, well, yeah, there's a lot actually.
A lot more, right?
Yes. And you eat vegan food all the time and you don't even think about it. I mean, falafel and hummus, peanut butter and jelly, spaghetti and tomato sauce. I mean, you have plant-based food all the time. And so to take normal ideas and normal ingredients and just put a little twist on them is what I feel like I am at best at doing. And that's what's given me so much success in the restaurant industry and consulting for people, is that I create recipes that work on their menus that meat eaters want to order, that they don't even notice is plant-based, but it just sounds interesting. It's their favorite thing done a little bit differently. I'll say that one of our best-selling tacos at the Four Seasons in Punta, Mexico is an avocado baja taco. Take an avocado, tempura fry it just like you would fish in a baja taco, but I do it with avocado.
Yeah.
And so anybody that sees it on the menu is like, oh, I want to try that because I love avocado and that sounds delicious. And so it gets ordered by everyone. And so that's my goal in life, is to not just make plant-based food for plant-based people, but to make plant-based food exciting for everyone. And it's not to convert everyone in the world to being plant-based 100% of the time, but it's to get people to eat more plants, because at the end of the day, no one's getting enough plants in their life. And let's be real, that's where all the vitamins and minerals and nutrients to live a healthy, full life are. Even if you choose to eat meat, you still need all of those vital, important vitamins and nutrients every single day. And so it's exciting to give people more interesting ways of consuming them.
Absolutely. And I have had some absolutely delicious, fully plant-based meals before, and even like introducing them to your kids and your family. And like you said, like, I love your approach because you're meeting people where they're at. You're not trying to convert everyone, but absolutely, we all need to be eating a wider variety, more plants and a wider variety of plants. And there's actually like a local place that's significantly plant-based. They do have some meat, and the food is exquisite. Like, it's really delicious. And if you don't tell people sometimes that this is what you're feeding them, or that, the cookbook is all plant-based, like, you just give them a cookbook.
Good food.
And just, right.
Yes.
Exactly.
And
good
it's
food
delicious.
is good food is good food. It doesn't matter what it's made from.
Right.
I remember I went to this restaurant in Oregon. I can't remember where it was exactly, with some friends. And it was like a 5 or 7 course mushroom tasting menu. And it was unbelievable. And it was like, they did everything with mushrooms, and there was no meat, there was no fish or anything. It was all plant-based. And the dessert was even made with mushrooms. And it was unbelievable. I mean, the whole meal was fantastic.
I love that. That makes me so happy.
And I think, a lot of times when you're cooking local and seasonally, that's just like, the food is so fresh and it tastes amazing. You need very little, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Eating seasonally is also something to get really excited about. And just from a health perspective, we should all be eating seasonally. If you don't know what plants are in season by you, can easily look it up. But yeah, it's very important because it's what your body needs. It's your body's natural rhythm that you're getting back into. You should be eating warm, comforting foods when it's cold out and it's winter. That's what your body wants. I teach something called what I call intuitive eating. And it's listening to your body and having your body tell you what it is that you need. And it was funny because when I paired up with Mindy, Dr. Mindy, to write Eat Like a Girl, she really had scientific backing on all of that and studies to show that, especially as women, we're not supposed to be eating the same thing every day year round. We're supposed to be eating different things, especially women, in different times of our cycle and in different times of the year. And so it's really important to listen to your body and figure out what the signs and symptoms mean that it's telling you. Your body's talking to you all the time. It's giving you little hints and signals in your nails, in your hair, in your skin, in your coloring, in your eyes, in everything. And you need to pick up on those little things and figure out what those mean. And your cravings, when you're craving something, people always say, oh, I'm craving meat. I'm craving protein. I'm craving meat. You actually can't crave protein, but you can crave iron. And so that's your body just saying, I need iron. Help me out here. And that's usually at a certain point in our cycle during the month when we're replenishing. And so it's important to eat dark leafy greens in addition to, if you're going to have animal protein. Also remember that animal is getting the iron from the plants that it's eating. And so cut out the middleman and have all of your iron from your greens. So yeah, I mean, just things like that, I think, will help you live such a better, fuller life if you're listening to your body.
So what are some of your favorite plants or plant foods?
Oh my gosh, all of them.
I mean, I'm the same way. Like I don't eat meat. I eat some fish and I eat a little bit of chicken, no red meat, no pork. And I love 99% of plants, I would say.
Yeah, I can't think of a single one that I don't love. But
what's
some of
one
my
that
favorite...
maybe, okay, if there's someone out there that only eats like a few plants and is trying to incorporate more, but that may something that is maybe unique, but also simple and a lot of people like, that they could easily incorporate into their diet.
Well, I always go to Italian food, like I said, because I am Italian, and Italian food is very easy to veganize. It's very easy to make plant-based. And so you can make plant-based versions of your favorite eggplant parmesan, of homemade pasta, of raviolis, of Alfredo. There's my Alfredo recipes in Eat Like a Girl. And so it's really easy to get all of these foods that you love, but in plant-based versions. And then as far as specific ingredients, it really comes down to everybody's personal choice. I love mushrooms, eggplant, and cauliflower. And I feel like those three things are so polarizing. You either love them or you hate them. And so,
especially eggplant.
Yeah.
So many people don't like
but I grew up eating eggplant parmesan. So
you know what it is? It's because people aren't preparing it correctly.
And I like baba ganoush, which is a different kind of eggplant, but I love it.
And baba ganoush is accidentally vegan. It's another accidentally vegan recipe.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. So eggplant really needs to be prepared correctly, or else it can be really bitter. It can just be, the texture can be off. You have to really get to know your eggplant. And maybe I need to do a video on this, on how to properly prepare an eggplant.
Yes, I think that's a great idea, actually.
Okay. All right. You're giving me ideas. Stay tuned for that video. Maybe by the time this airs, I'll already publish it.
Yeah.
So when you worked with Dr. Mindy, or I don't know what to call her, Dr. Mindy. Pelz, or Mindy. How did you come up with the recipes? I know she's very focused on women's hormone health. And how did you tailor the recipes to what she was discussing in the book?
Yeah. So when Mindy first came, I met Mindy through Jessie as well, by the way. When I first talked to her about doing this book, there are some meat recipes in this book as well, by the way. A chef, Jeff Weiss, created some meat recipes for it. So it's not 100% plant-based, but the bulk of it is, because she also agrees that we're not getting enough nutrients from plants. And when she approached me, I was like, oh, great. I have a zillion healthy recipes that I can just plug and play into this book. And then when I started digging in and working more with her, I was like, oh, I have to make very specific recipes for this book and start it all over again. And one of the key things in this book is a concern that most people have is, how do I get enough protein, especially as a woman going through certain stages of life? How do you get enough protein to maintain your own health through plants? And so it was really important to me to make very high protein recipes for this book. And I think I accomplished it. It's really about, with plant-based eating versus meat eating, it's not about substituting the animal protein in the center of the plate. You know, if you've got your typical American dinner and you've got a piece of meat on the plate, you've got a green and you've got a starch. Well, it's not about just taking out the animal and putting in, you know, a brick of tofu. It's about layering the proteins. Almost every plant on earth has protein in it. And so it's about combining all of the high protein ones to make a complete meal, if that makes sense. And so I highly recommend getting to know your seeds, because seeds have a lot of protein in them. They're delicious. And nuts. And I'll make these little sprinkle toppings out of nuts and seeds, and I'll flavor them with savory or with sweet flavorings and spices. And that is like an extra little sprinkle on top of your salad, on top of your this. You can crust tofu in it. You can crust eggplant with it. And so
you need to make a cookbook.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
It needs to come out, because I want to know how to do that.
Yeah, it really, that's kind of my theory on how to get enough protein as a plant-based eater. It's really not about, you know, everyone's like, oh, just have protein smoothies. Well, you know, you don't really want to, I don't want to have 3 smoothies a day. I want to enjoy my life and have food that everyone can enjoy. And so that's the secret. Now you know.
And I love that. And that's how I kind of eat. Like sometimes people, and Marnie and I run this quarterly detox reboot. We're calling it a vitality reboot now. The next one will be in January. And you eat a plant-based lunch every day for the entire time. And then dinner can be either plant-based or paleo. And you know, some people are like, oh, I'm really hungry. I didn't eat enough protein. I'm like, well, what'd you eat? Well, you know, I put some chickpeas on my salad. I'm like, you need maybe roasted garbanzo beans. That's great. But what about hemp seeds? What about tofu? You know, if you're going to eat an egg maybe later, like having a hard-boiled egg, like the layers like you talked about. And like, I love roasting and making savory nuts and seeds, like, and then adding that, and it, bam, like the salad is like not a normal salad. It's a full on meal, but I like that concept. And I just naturally do that with my salads, is that layering aspect of it. And then you'll get enough protein, the same amount that you would have gotten eating, you know, whatever, chicken or something else, some other animal product.
Exactly.
Although I do find that sometimes I feel like I eat too many nuts and seeds.
Is there such a thing?
I don't know, but I eat a lot.
It depends everyone though. You know,
and that's it, is that everybody's body's different. And that's why I have a really hard time with people that say, this is the diet. This is the right diet.
Yes,
if you just do this, you'll feel amazing.
Absolutely.
Because that's just their ego talking, because every single person is built completely differently. So it's so important for you to find out what works right for you. So if you feel like your body's not responding to that amount of nuts and seeds, then try adding in some other things. You know, there's things that are high in protein that people don't really think about, like sweet potatoes and regular potatoes. And so, and obviously beans and legumes. And so layering all those things, one of the hit recipes in the book has been a chili stuffed sweet potato. And it's super high in protein. I forget exactly. I don't want to misquote how many grams of protein are in it, but it's a lot. And so just find the one that works for you.
Well, Absolutely. And I think you something you said about the book, you have to also pay attention to what day of the week it is, what time of the month it is, what season of life you are, especially for women, because sometimes some days you do need more protein and others you don't need as much. Yep. And so I think that's really important. And I love the hormone health focus of the book, because I think that in and of itself is very unique, and it's also much needed. Because as women, we kind of are like become creatures of habit, and we want to work out the same way every day. And then we want to eat the same way most days of the week. And that's not going to optimize how we feel.
It's not. Variety and doing something different. And even with working out, I mean, doing a different workout every single day is so much more beneficial than doing the same one every single day. And, you know, we have all this focus on protein because that's what's been drilled into us. But I am so much more concerned about where people are getting their fiber every single day and where people are getting their vitamins. And the conversation has to switch a little bit. You're going to get enough protein. No one's ever died from a protein deficiency that I'm aware of. And I actually think that that's a real thing. But people die all the time from complications of not having enough fiber in their diet, not having the right amount of vitamins in their diet as well. And I'm not talking about taking vitamins in a pill form. I'm talking about eating your vitamins, which is a far more efficient way and a more important way of getting nutrients into your body.
Well, and I'm just thinking about what you said about the fiber specifically, because Stephanie and I have been talking a lot about that recently. And I know so many people that don't go to the bathroom every day, and I don't mean to like bring this up on the podcast.
No,
but like,
we need to talk about it, Marnie.
You need to go to the bathroom every single day, and
once or twice, ideally twice, actually.
I talked to a friend who's like, yeah, I haven't gone to the bathroom in 5 days. I'm like, what?
Oh my God.
Like, I feel like I'd be in the hospital.
Well,
you should be actually, because you need to get that shit out of you. I mean, sorry, but literally and figuratively.
Right.
I'm glad you said it. It's true. And it is really important. And it is an intake outtake kind of a thing. And your food should be cycling through you. And that's also about eating foods that are easily digestible and whole foods and far less processed foods. Processed foods are very difficult for your system to digest, and they stay in there a long time. And carcinogenic foods and things like that don't come out that easily. And so you need all of the fresh stuff to move it.
Yes. And you know, one question I have, because a lot of times people travel and their digestive systems are a bit off. You're traveling a ton. One thing I even struggle with, and I seek out healthy restaurants, and I know Marnie does too when we travel, but eating enough fiber and plants while you travel is really hard. And even for me, I'm not eating as much as I would at home because most of my plate at home is vegetables, you know, for dinner and lunch.
Right.
Any like tips or suggestions you have on how to do this when you travel?
Well, it's another reason to come to any of my hotels and resorts that I work with.
Yes. And we'll link all this up in the show notes.
High fiber foods on the menu. But really is seek out salad. Seek out salad wherever you are. That should always be in your daily meal or in your daily meal routine at home and on the road. And just continue that. Continue to find greens wherever you are. If you are traveling somewhere where you can't have the water, don't have a salad because they wash it in that water. Trust me, from firsthand knowledge, you don't want to eat that raw salad, but have cooked vegetables and especially greens. And there's all sorts of supplements you can bring with you. But really, if you're just eating what you would normally eat at home on the road, you'll feel great. And again, just getting your greens.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And my favorite thing to Google when I'm out and about is healthy food near me. And sometimes it totally annoys my family when they're like, can't we just go to the nearest restaurant? I'm like, no. Like part of the experience of traveling is finding good food. And I don't want to just eat at whatever place we're walking by.
And I think, honestly, a lot of people just resort to whatever's close by.
Yeah.
And it literally takes 5 minutes to go the extra mile. And we found some great restaurants doing that, like really good restaurants as a family. And I'm even talking about fast casual places.
Right.
Like not
and
necessarily.
On
even
Instagram,
is going to have healthier options. There's very few restaurants on earth that don't have anything healthy on the menu. Obviously, we're not talking about fast food, but when you're traveling the world, most places have something that's going to be a little healthier, even at roadside stands. There's fruit sold on the side of the road, basically in every country in the world except for America.
Right. I mean,
kind of
actually,
ironic, huh?
when you leave the U.S., it can be easier to find healthy food.
Yes.
Well, and you're not worried so much about them.
It is. Most countries that I've been to, it's a lot easier. And again, with the fiber, fruit. Have a ton of fruit. We talk about Jesse, who connected us, Jesse Itzler.
Yeah.
He eats fruit till noon. Let me tell you, I fed that man many times. He eats a huge amount of fruit, all before noontime. And he's loving it. He's so healthy. He looks great. He feels great. It's great for him.
I've always wondered about that because he does a lot of endurance events and he's very active, to say the least. I'm like, does he really just eat fruit? Like, can he eat a smoothie with protein powder or no protein powder?
Those
well,
ones
we know he likes
midday.
smoothies.
Yeah, no, he loves smoothies. I do a zillion smoothies for him. But he is a bit of an anomaly in that he's a big guy. I don't know exactly how tall he is, but I would venture to say maybe 6'3".
Oh, wow.
He's a tall guy and he needs a lot of nutrients, but he gets all of them from plants. He'll eat mainly fruit until about noon, and then he'll have a high protein smoothie, and then he'll just snack. He eats so many veggies and hummus. The man could live off of veggies and hummus. Hummus obviously being made from beans and sesame paste, and so tons of protein in both sesame seeds and chickpeas, and all the fiber nutrients from veggies. And then he'll have a dinner. And I mean, he eats really clean, clean. But clearly it works for him. And it's so funny. There's videos that they've posted lots of times before of Jesse just like exhausted and no energy in the middle of an event. And I'll like hand him a smoothie. He'll drink the smoothie and he'll like come back to life. Because when you don't eat junk, all of that affects you a lot. Like, I don't like having processed sugar in my life. I don't say I never eat it because I do have to make desserts for work. And so inevitably, maybe once a month I have cane sugar, but I try and stay away from it as much as possible. Therefore, my body is super sensitive when I eat fruit. So it's great. If I need more energy, I literally eat an apple and I've got all this energy. Yeah. It's really exciting when you get your body to kind of baseline and you don't have all of these stimulants in it all the time, that you can really see how your body reacts. I also don't drink caffeine. I don't drink coffee. And so again, it just makes you more sensitive to the natural foods and feeling how your body really feels when it eats everything.
I completely agree. Yeah. And I mean, I don't drink caffeine either. I do indulge in, some sugar, but not much, and very little processed food. And I have a lot of energy. I just am an energetic person. Stephanie is too. Like, we both are very high energy. And I know so many people that are depleted in their energy, and I know it's because of the way they're eating and sleeping. But like,
right.
Well, the way you eat affects the way you sleep a lot as well.
Right.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
So one of the things I know that the book talks about is, and Mindy's really big, I've been following her for a while, and like this fasting window. Mm-hmm. And maybe you could share a little bit about like plant-based nutrition when it comes to breaking the fast and snacks, and how to like optimize the benefits of the fasting window, even, in that early, whether you fast for 12 hours or 14 or 16, but maybe just even that first meal you eat coming out of the fast, maybe not eating like bacon and eggs or something.
Yeah. Well, actually, I just had a smoothie to break my 24-hour fast, which I try and do a 24-hour once a month, and once a quarter I try and do a 48. But one of the most exciting things and chapters in this book for me is the fasted snack recipes. So when I was talking with Mindy, I did not realize that there are foods that you can eat during your fasting window that keep you in that state. Mm-hmm. So you can actually eat and stay fasting, which blew my mind. I was like, what have I been doing all these years? Yeah. And sometimes I don't feel like eating anything, but there's sometimes, especially on a busy day when you have a lot going on, where you're just like, I just have to put something in my mouth. And, most people talk about just like olives. And so like just putting a couple olives in your mouth, and that's fine. But I really wanted there to be some recipes so people could feel like they were eating real food and making real food. Mm-hmm. And so there's some very exciting recipes in here, some fasting crackers and an olive tapenade and an herb salad. And I mean, they're light dishes because there's not that much you can eat, but I wanted to get a little creative with it so that you could feel like you were sitting down, or if you needed to go to a meeting and everybody else was eating around you, you could sit down and you could have your little crackers and top it on, and you could eat something with everyone and feel like you were still being social and staying on your fast. And then when it comes to breaking your fast, there's also a huge chapter of recipes for that. And I really like breaking my fast either with a high protein smoothie, because I also love smoothies. Like Jessie, we have that shared love. I have a bunch of smoothie recipes in the book. And if you follow me on social media, I'm constantly sharing what's in my smoothie today. And then if it's not going to be that, because sometimes it varies too. Sometimes I do a dinner to dinner fast, and sometimes I do a breakfast to breakfast fast. And so if it's a dinner one, then I just make sure I load up on my protein. Sometimes I'll do a tofu scramble, which I love tofu scramble in the morning. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I love it. And so I'll do that. I also will use tofu in different ways. So one of the recipes that's become really popular in the book too is my fettuccine Alfredo, using chickpea pasta, in the book, I think it's lentil pasta. And my Alfredo made from cashews and tofu. And it's really high in protein.
Sounds so good.
Yeah.
So delicious. And then you can sprinkle it with those nuts and seeds like I was talking about to make kind of a Parmesan. That recipe is on my social media. Message me if you can't find it, because God knows how buried it'll be by the time this comes out. And you've then got, all of a sudden, you've got a plate of pasta sitting in front of you that's delicious. And you're talking about like 35, 40 grams of protein.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I love all these ideas. And like Marnie and I had interviewed someone a while ago, and they had like a fasting bar, like a bar that mimicked fasting, but I didn't love that it's like a bar that's processed, and it wasn't the worst, it wasn't the best, right? From ingredient standpoint. Look, so I love that you have recipes.
If you can make your own everything, the better.
Right. 100%.
In your fettuccine recipe, you're not having people make the pasta though, right? Like from scratch?
No, you can use box, but you can make pasta from scratch. No problem.
It's just like for a busy person with a family, that might be a little complicated.
Yeah.
For a lot of pasta before. It's not
but that's like easy. A weekend project maybe
like
or something.
A fun adventure.
And I love that you put the tofu in with the cashews. So I've been doing this for like 5 or 6 years. I actually would put a thing for my kids. I started doing this, a jar of like clean pasta sauce, like organic, whatever sauce. And I just put in tofu, like raw, in a blender with a little bit of olive oil and like seasoning, like Italian seasoning and garlic, and mix it up and then heat it up and make that as their sauce with like a protein-based pasta.
Amazing.
And they would eat up there and be like, I want the tofu pasta. That's what we call it in our house. And it's literally, for any parent out there, it takes like 5 minutes to make.
I love that.
You just need a high-speed blender.
Take the stigma off of tofu, because
I eat tofu every week, but
soy is so good for you. And I love that Mindy and I share that as well. It is so full of all the phytonutrients that you need, and it can help, especially with women's health, so much. They're saying that organic soy now always is very important to always have organic soy when you get it. It can even help protect women against breast cancer, which is so wild. And they always say that's what's causing it, but it's actually the dairy that's causing it.
Well, so I was going to say, there's so much controversy over soy.
That's what
I was going to ask about that.
It's really going away because there have been all these studies about how amazing it is. And so people are having a hard time doing that. And I always say, when you read a study, the most important thing is not to read the study, but is to read who wrote the study, who
paid for the person to do the study,
who funded it. Because we don't have any government studies being done at the moment right now. Everything is being paid for by special interests and lobbying groups. And so when you see a study that says that soy is terrible for you, it's bad for you, and it's paid by the dairy lobby, what does that really say?
Right.
What's that saying to people? Or if it's paid for by pharmaceutical companies, they have no money in you staying healthy and well. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, really always look at the source of where you're getting your information from.
So there's no juries out on the soy, just to clarify, right? Mm-hmm. Like soy is good for women of all ages.
The jury's in. It's good for you.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I just want to reiterate that, because people even say to Stephanie and I, like, well, how often, I'm more prone to breast cancer. Should I only eat tofu once a week? Or like, what is my limit?
As you feel like you should eat it. There is no limit for anything.
And I think like your individual facts and circumstances play into this. And like Leslie, you said, organic, especially for the soy. Otherwise, it's almost 100% always genetically modified, and you want to stay away from those foods.
And if you do have time and you like making things from scratch, tofu is actually very easy to make from scratch. And they also have there's a couple other ways of making tofu that's not from soybeans. You can make tofu from chickpeas, and they actually sell that in the markets now. You can make tofu from pumpkin seeds, which is actually really delicious.
Oh, wow.
If you don't want to make it yourself, there's a brand called Pumpfu that's making it. Pumpfu, I think is how you spell it. And they're delicious, but you could also make them homemade. If you have the time, it's really not that hard.
Okay. You just opened my world up to a whole new, way of cooking. I mean, Marnie and I are just sprouting the last like month or so. So now we make it into
I'm
making
obsessed
tofu.
with sprouting. Actually, my bean sprouts are going to be ready to eat when I make lunch today, and I can't wait to put them on my salad.
Yeah.
Yay. Yes. Sprouting is so good for you. It's so important. It's one of the most cost-effective things that you can do for your health.
It's
delicious.
And easy. It really is easy. I was kind of hesitant.
So delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been giving the sprouting kits as gifts because I just love them.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Maybe my favorite thing, I go to a favorite thing party every December. I'm like, next year it may be my favorite thing gift. We'll see.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as you think about women specifically and different stages, there's, maybe there's a stage of life where women are having babies, and then maybe there's a stage of life where women are feeding babies and children. And then, they are more in their midlife and their children are older and they're maybe starting to go through perimenopause and menopause. And I know we've talked a lot about intuitive eating and eating to tune into ourselves, but do you believe that we should be cooking in a certain way based on where we are in a stage of life for women specifically?
Yes, because you do need different nutrients at different stages of your life. You need more or less than other stages. But and I see how hard it is. Look, I don't have kids yet in my life, and so I can't speak to that. But I know how hard it is for moms when they're having to make food for their kids and then to think about something that they have to eat on top of that. And so incorporating however it is that you need to eat into what your kids are eating is probably the best way to go, and just making one meal for them. And if your kids don't like veggies, I have to say, I'll go back to what my mom did. And I think it was such a great way to get kids excited about veggies is take them to the farmer's market, take them to the grocery store, plop them in the produce department and say, you get to pick out one thing from this entire department and we'll make it. And what do you want to try? And that gets kids not only excited about trying something new, but gets them in the kitchen with you and preparing things. And for me, it's so important that kids learn at an early age to love cooking. Because look, at the end of the day, the name of the game with health is there's no way around this. You have to fall in love with cooking. You have to fall in love with feeding yourself, because you cannot put this in the hands of other people and food companies that don't have your best interests at heart.
Absolutely.
And we've talked about this too, like getting your kids engaged and involved. And, there are some adults that are like really have a fear of being in the kitchen or this aversion or don't like to cook. And if you pry away, I've literally had conversations with people before, their mom didn't let them in the kitchen, or their mom just kind of controlled. And they, and it literally is going back to, these are like 40, 50-year-old people who are still struggling with this concept. So for parents out there with younger kids, like, well, it's never too late to engage them. And you're also teaching them a life skill that they will have forever. They may not become a Leslie and be like a, food chef, but they're going to be able to like cook for themselves and their families and nourish their bodies and save some money by not eating out all the time too. So there's just like a ripple effect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's such a misnomer too. People always think that, eating vegan is so expensive. I'm like, not at all. Have you seen the prices of meat and cheese recently? They're astronomical. They're a heck of a lot higher than a potato and some broccoli.
And some people think eating vegan or plant-based, well, I guess it's more vegan, means you're just eating more packaged foods.
Yes.
So that's why I like the term plant-based.
I like the term plant-based as well. And look, those vegan products that are out there that are processed, I really truly feel like they serve a purpose. I am not anti Impossible and Beyond and all of those kind of substitute foods and all the cheeses out there, because I call them transition foods, because it's really hard. Like, I went plant-based as a kid, and so it was very easy because I knew what I wanted when I was a child, and I just intuitively sought it out. And so it was very easy for me. But I understand that if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and are trying to go plant-based, it's really hard to change how you've thought about food your entire life. And so is a Beyond Burger better for you than a meat burger? I think so. It doesn't have any cholesterol. It has better fats in it for you. And so can you use it as kind of a transition thing to, okay, great, I'm going to make my bolognese with Impossible Meat or Beyond Meat. And then next time I'm going to try Leslie's recipe with walnuts and see how that works. And so it's kind of like just easing your way into it. And so it is nice that there's some one for one substitutions so that you can continue to have your favorite recipes, but just have them in a plant-based way.
100%. And that's really the way to like start small with these habits and shifts.
Yeah.
Going cold turkey, unless you have your own personal Leslie to cook for you every day,
which would be really nice.
I know. Yes.
Well, I'm working on that, ladies. That's a whole nother conversation.
Okay.
I'm working on everyone
I can't wait
to have a little Leslie in their refrigerator.
Yes. Well, we would love that. Well, speaking of
a
that,
little
you have
AI
a product
Leslie
out there
telling you what to grab and what to make.
Right. Well, that would go against intuitive eating a little bit, maybe. But yes, we could use a little help. But tell us about the product that you have out there.
Yeah, I partnered with a brand called Fabolish, and we first launched with a basil aioli. I love basil. I'm obsessed with it. And I actually have been making this basil aioli. It came out of Sarah and Jesse's kitchen. I was with them once, and Sarah said, I had this basil dip once at a restaurant, and I've never been able to see it. I've never seen it again. And she's like, could you make it? I'm like, describe it. She goes, it was creamy and tasted like basil. I was like, done. And so I ran out into her garden, grabbed all this basil, worked in the kitchen, whipped all this stuff up, handed it to her. And she goes, it's exactly what I remember it tasting like.
Wow.
I was like, amazing. And so it became a thing, and I made it for them everywhere, and people would lose their minds. I mean, I'm talking about, I would make like jar vats of it like this that would be gone in 10 minutes. And so when Fabolish came to me about wanting to do a co-branded product together, I was like, oh, we should launch the basil aioli. So now everybody has access to it. It's really clean ingredients, super delicious. I will say one thing that I'll dispel, because people are like, oh gosh, it has sunflower oil in it. It has cold pressed sunflower oil in it. And then the oil's never heated in the process of making the aioli. So that's the thing with seed oils, is when you heat them up, they become rancid and not so good for you. That's why deep frying is bad and things like that. But when you have a cold pressed organic sunflower seed, squeeze it and create the oil and then never heat it again, it still maintains its health benefits. It's very good for you. And it makes a really delicious creamy basil aioli.
Okay. I am so glad you talked about this. Marnie and I just dropped an episode, I don't know, a couple weeks ago based on this recording. And we talked about seed oils, and we specifically talked about the heat. And then I did notice that, because I was about to purchase this product, which I think will be great to give as gifts, by the way, like hostess gift.
Great to give as hostess.
And I did notice the cold press, and I love that you clarified, because you're like, answering the question that anyone who thinks about seed oils has on their mind.
Yeah. Cause like,
so from a marketing standpoint, it was brilliant. Yeah.
But I was very supportive of this, because also there's a lot of benefit to it, and it's very neutral tasting. And so as a chef, we made it with olive oil. It didn't taste right. And when we made it with coconut oil, it didn't taste right. It was the sunflower oil that made it taste perfect. And so sometimes for flavor purposes, you have to do it, but it is very important to note that it is still very good for you because it is cold.
So I have a question. So I'm not an aioli person. I like don't like,
Not yet.
and it's like mayonnaise-y, I don't eat any of that stuff. So what makes it an aioli? Because there's no dairy in it, and that's
There's
usually
no
what I'm
dairy.
not liking about an aioli.
Yes. Well, technically, it is sort of the same process of the base as making a mayo, but you're making it with the sunflower oil instead of with eggs. And so it is like this creamy basil, but it literally tastes like you're eating creamy basil. Like the
Which I
basil is
love
so
basil.
fresh because we're using real basil. We're not using basil extract, and we're using real ingredients, real lemons, real basil. And so it just is this beautiful punch of garden taste. It tastes like you're eating the garden. I'm telling you.
I want to try it.
I can't wait.
So fresh and yummy. Yeah. And then I'm working with on another product with them. And hopefully by the time this airs, it will launch. That is really going to help women. And I can't wait for you to find out.
I cannot wait.
Do you want to share or if
I
before
won't share yet because we don't have the official launch date. And so it may or may not be out, but look for it if it's not out yet.
Yes. And if you follow Leslie, you'll know. You'll know when it comes out, right?
For sure.
And we will link up how to purchase the basil aioli in the show notes.
Thank you.
Yes. And I'm going to definitely buy it and share on social media. And I think my kids will really like it. On sandwiches and stuff, they like.
Yeah. Let me know. It's been so fun to watch how people are serving it and eating it. I mean, the way that Sarah and Jesse eat it is just with veggies as a dip, but I love it as a spread. And so when I make BLTAs with mushroom bacon, and really any sandwich, it's so good on sandwiches. And then a friend of mine called me and she had a little impromptu party at her house and she opened her freezer and fridge and realized she had nothing in her house except for my basil aioli and some frozen French fries. And so she made the French fries and served it with the aioli. And she said people were freaking out. They loved it. So apparently it's really good with French fries too.
I could see that. I could absolutely see that. Okay.
I'm wondering if you can share a really fast, funny story about something that you've experienced as a chef and all these, you're chefing for lots of different people and places. And I don't know, does something come to mind that was really funny?
Oh gosh. Well, it's always funny and fun when I'm with Sarah Blakely and Jesse Itzler. Although, I don't think I can share some of the funniest stories.
It's not on air, maybe. Yeah.
But yeah, we have a great time. I mean, there's the time that I was cooking with their daughter, who I just absolutely adore. She gets up early in the morning and so do I. And I love baking in the morning. And so she knows that. And so she'll come down and always want to help and obviously lick the batter. And this was one time, I can't remember what I was making. I think I was making brownies. And I turned around to grab an ingredient and she turned the mixer on just with flour in the bowl. And the flour just went everywhere, all over their white kitchen. And it was brown cocoa powder, like a huge layer of dust everywhere. That was pretty funny. And she freaked out and thought it was the funniest thing on earth. It was I was doing it more.
That is funny.
That's probably the sweetest one I can tell.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Leslie, where can people find you, buy the cookbook, your aioli, all the things?
Well, the easy thing is I made everything my name. And so everything is under Leslie Durso. The best places to follow me are Instagram, if you want to see behind the scenes of my life and know when the recipes are posted. I post all of the recipes on my YouTube channel and in my Substack that I send out, which is my monthly newsletter. And so you get links to all the recipes that I've posted and some insights and just fun going ons in my life. And so those are the three main ones I think that I would follow if you didn't know me.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll link all that up in the show notes.
And one final question we love to ask is, what does the art of living well mean to you?
Oh man, the art of living well to me means living your life exactly how you want to live it. It's so short. And so doing those things every single day that you want to do is so much more important than doing the things that you think you should be doing.
Amen.
Love that. So
Yeah.
true.
Love you ladies.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you for having me on.
Well,
Yes,
thank you for
thank
coming on. This was
you.
so fun. And we're excited about all the new projects that you have brewing, and we can't wait to share those with our listeners when they're launched and in the public. So
Thank you. I have a question for the two of you. Actually, I'm going to turn it around real quick.
okay, you go for that.
Okay.
I would love to know each of your favorite plant-based dishes that you love.
That we make, or just that we've had anywhere? Could be anything.
Either.
I mean, I love mushrooms, love mushrooms. So any mushroom dish, I wouldn't say I'm an expert in preparing. If I'm making them, I'm usually just like roasting them or doing something very simple. But if I go to more of a foodie restaurant and they make some sort of mushroom dish, I always love that.
Yes. Well, there's this one restaurant in particular that Marnie and I
the mushroom tacos.
The mushroom tostada. And I don't even normally eat tostadas. They are so good. I've driven out of and it's not close to where we live. So I literally crave that. And that's only been the last 6 months. I would say one kind of favorite thing that I love is making a plant-based taco with sweet potatoes, black beans, and cauliflower in a shell, with avocados and cilantro and red onions. And that to me, it's a taco, but something about the sweetness between the potatoes and the cauliflower and the beans, that's kind of my thing. I love that. Yeah.
Love that. I always say too, the key to eating well is not the item, it's the sauce. Sauces are so important with tacos.
And the toppings.
The right salsa and getting the right sauce to go on it. Same thing with Italian food. It's really, life is about sauce.
Yes.
Yes. And I do love cilantro. Love cilantro. And I'm always shocked when the people that think it tastes like soap.
I know, that's so sad
apparently
to me. My life would be so much more boring if I didn't love cilantro.
I mean, we love cilantro. It's the herb, but it's people have said you either like cilantro or parsley. And I mean, I'm Italian, I'm 100% Italian, but I don't love parsley, but I love cilantro and basil.
I like both.
But there's someone said there's literally I'm not saying a genetic component, but there is something that where people can't eat cilantro. It tastes like soap. Yeah.
Yes. That
Thank
is
God I don't have that, or no
me
one
too. Because
I don't either. I feel
we put it on everything.
Salads, everything.
Yeah.
Love it.
Same. I love it. It's so good in a salad dressing and in everything.
Okay, I have one final question for you, though.
Yeah.
Since you've traveled in Italy so much, and it's one of my favorite places, where's your favorite place to go in Italy? From almost from a
city?
Food and a culture, it could be a small town even.
That's so hard. I've been to so many that I love. I have a friend who has a restaurant in Chianti in Greve called La Mole. And the chef there is spectacular. I love going there and eating there. And it's up on the hillside in Chianti. So it has this beautiful view of the hillsides of Tuscany. And if you call him ahead of time and tell him you're plant-based or you want plant-based, just tell him my name. And he makes the most incredible, delicious food.
Well, thank you for sharing those little gems with us.
Yeah. I wish I could go eat there right now.
And then I'll give you my Rome list if you want some good Roman restaurants.
Okay, perfect. We'll reach out.
Yeah. Because in Italy, it's not about, there are some great vegan restaurants, don't get me wrong, in the big cities, but there's so much accidentally vegan food in Italy. It's so easy to eat there. Every restaurant has food that can be made plant-based, especially in the South. It's so easy.
Yep.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you,
Leslie.
I really enjoyed talking with both of you.
Yeah.
Have
a wonderful day.
You too. I hope we got everything that you need.
Yes, this was awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, happy holidays to you both.
Thank you.
Sending lots of love and can't wait to listen to the episode.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.